All right, we are assembling the whole of the Armortek Tiger 1 late variant Armortek 1/6 scale model. So this is loosely assembled. I haven't tightened anything yet. So that what happens is you slowly tighten all the bolts all the way around. That way it kind of comes together and squares up. Otherwise, if you tighten one area before you line up all the pieces, then you could end up with like some off angles. And you want these to be 90 degree angles. So what I've done on the inside is attach these fixed ends right here to the screws, and what that does is it holds the bottom of the tank together. So otherwise what happens is when you look through these holes in the side plate, they won't have lined up with the inside interior brass bushings for the axles. So that I lined up and tightened so that would hold it, because you really want the axles to be able to go through the suspension bars and be square. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and tighten all the nuts and screws on the inside. So what I've got are MIP drivers. These are for RC cars or tanks, and these are amazing because you get really good grip on the handle, and the edges of the driver never round off. They're always super strong, very hard steel. So it gives you a very positive engagement with every screw. Because the worst thing is to have a bad driver, then you don't get your screws tight. And I'm not using Loctite on any of this right now because there's a possibility that it'll go together and it won't be square and I'll have to loosen it. And Loctite is really messy. It gets everywhere and paint doesn't stick to it. So I'm fine with just tightening it up little by little. And what I've done is I clamped these two sides together because I could see a pretty large visible gap in between the side plates and the front and top plates. So I squeezed them together, not super tight, just like, firmly gripped them together. And I'm gonna go around and I'm gonna tighten all these nuts. And I'm gonna tighten the nuts pretty tight. Armortek tanks will get you into some awkward positions. Now, in the past, and what I've seen other people do is paint all these plates before assembling the tank, but that'll set you back a really long time. And I decided not to do that. What I did paint were the brackets because they're steel. And once I put the tank together, the bottoms of the brackets, the parts facing the aluminum, are going to be exposed to corrosion. If this is left outside, moisture will rot that metal and rust it. So I painted the steel brackets, and I literally just stuck my hand out the window. It's freezing cold out during the winter, so I don't want to have to paint all this stuff outside. But I did sand and clean all of the aluminum. That way, once it's all put together as a sub-assembly in the whole, I can prime and paint the inside first so that it has a nice appearance and a good finish. I just think that really improves the build, having it painted. I mean, you really don't even need to paint the inside, but I'm gonna go ahead and paint it. And this Tiger tank is really square, so it actually doesn't take a lot of grinding to get all these plates to fit together. Some of the models, like the King Tiger, you have to grind a lot of these little dovetails just to get the corners to line up, because some of them are rounded. So I did grind actually this corner right here, and I filed this hole so that these plates would fit and nice and tight without any kind of gap on them. And then, so there's still these big, huge recesses where it's cut out. And you can fill this. Some people fill it with milliput, and that's actually an area on the real tank where it's welded, so you can create scale welds there, which is pretty neat. I did tighten 2 M4 hex screws right there already. So the front end is tightened, so I can take this clamp off. Scoot around to the back. So, this is a 2.5 millimeter driver. And I'm just going to tighten up that screw right there. Nice and tight. I'm not too worried about these coming loose. I'm gonna usually inspect my tank on a regular basis and give it maintenance when it needs to. If these parts come loose, they're not impossible to get to, but they can get a little harder to access once all the internals are inside. So if you want to do Loctite because you just don't want to have to worry about it, you can. There's not that many screws that hold the lower hull together. And these pannier sides stay loose according to the instructions for timbering. So I assume that's just when you put the upper hull side plate on so that they can line up. Because you don't want to tighten everything too early, or you'll never get your holes to line up, and then you'll just have to go back and loosen them up. Now we've got some, oh, those are the M4s in the back. And I've got an 8 millimeter wrench for those. Those are nice and tight now. Oh yeah. We can take this off. So now what we've got here is the lower hole completely tightened up. Very easy. Not a lot of pieces to that, but it looks beautiful. And we're starting our Tiger 1 tank construction. It's all tightened up. I can remove these placeholders. So I really like that tip, which is in the manual, and that is putting a fixed end with an M6 bolt, just like you're gonna do when you put the suspension together. And so I'm I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. I might be adding more glassy plates, side plates, and then do the suspension, get that all laid up. It's coming together really fast and looking fantastic. In other news, I did order a second tank since at the end of this month, Armortek's raising its prices, and after owning a variety of models from Armortek, I found that the Tiger is my favorite. So having a pair of them, I think, is going to look really fantastic. Better than any other pair that I could imagine. So having a squad of Tigers is really going to be killer. So I should be getting that tank in a couple of days, and then I'll be catching up with the second build so that I can do 2 Tigers simultaneously. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a good one.